Well, hello, welcome again to a reading of the Greek New Testament. And I'm just reading through Paul's epistle to the Philippians, chapter 1, and I got up to verse 21. This final section of chapter 1 has quite a number of difficult verses whose translation is not necessarily secure, so you'll bear with me when I give various alternatives at various stages. So verse 21 sets the scene for this. Paul says, "Emoi ga totsen Christos kai to apathanen." The next page is kerdos. And what we're getting here, we're getting throughout this chapter, are these articular infinitives. So we have top plus sao, this is the infinitive from sao. We're going to get top plus apothanein. And this is simply life and death. So life for me is Christ, and death is kerdos on the next page, is a gain, is a boon. And this Paul's in prison, so he's not quite sure what's going to happen to him, and so he's thinking very much perhaps about his own mortality and weighing up the different options. And that theme continues on in the following verses. So, ede totsen en saki tutomoi kapos ergu, ti hairesamai u gnorisdo. So, if life, so if I understand I choose or something, or if there is life in the flesh, this understand perhaps will be for me, or this will be for me fruit of work, literally. So in other words, this will be a fruitful work, literally fruit arising from the work. The ergo probably is a defining genitive here. So if I live in the flesh, then this, understand, will be for me fruitful work. The gnorisdo is an interesting word. It does appear elsewhere in the New Testament. It means to make known. It's the usual meaning. In classical Greek, it can also have the sense of gain knowledge and discover, but probably not here. It probably has the sense here of declare. So I am not declaring what I will choose. Now, haireo is to take, and in the middle it's to choose, and that's the form used here. This is a future middle. So I'm not declaring what I will choose, that is life or death. Sun ekamai de ekton duo. Tein epithumian ekon eis to analusai, kai sun Christo enai. Holo ga malon kreson. Sun ekamai, something like I am held. It's that middle of perhaps a passive here, or it could be middle from echo. So it's something like I am held, perhaps I am torn, ek tone duo, literally from two things. So we would say I'm torn or held between two things. That is, these two things, life or death. Having the desire, eis to analusai. Now, this is going to be, it's eis to plus infinitive for purpose. Analus, the verb analuo is used only here and in Luke 12 in the New Testament. It does occur in Book of Tobit and Book of Judith in the Septuagint. The basic meaning is to set out on a journey. The luo, the analuo, either has the sense of to strike camp, that is to pull up your tent pegs and move on, or it can also be used to weigh anchor, to pull up the anchor. Here it's probably being used euphemistically for death. So having this desire so as to die and to be with the Messiah, to be with Christ, And then in brackets we've got a gar here in square brackets, but I'll translate it. For, understand it, crason comparative. So it is much better by far. So that would be much better by far. Tote epimenein en te saki anenkaioteron dihumas. Now again, we're getting these articular infinitives, tot plus the epimenein. So being used as a noun here. But the act of remaining, or the state of remaining, in square brackets, in the flesh, this is a comparative. It's more compelling from anankaios. Ananke is necessity. Anankaios is an adjective, and this is comparative here. So being more compelling to remain in the flesh on account of you. So the debt is quite important here. So he says, on the one hand, I've got this desire to move on, as it were, and be with Christ, and that would be much better by far. But it is more compelling but remaining behind in the flesh is more compelling on account of you. Kai tuto pepoithos oida hoti menor, kai paramenor, pasin huminestain humon prokapain, kai karantes pistios. And I'll stop there because verse 26 is a difficult verse. And pepoithos, this is this fossilized form originally from patho. We've seen this earlier, back in verse 14 and elsewhere. It means trusting in or relying in. So trusting in this, this is in form, it's a perfect participle, but in sense it's present. So trusting in this, I know that meno, now notice the accent here, so this is original meneso, and the sigma goes and contracts, so this is a future, and so is this one here. So being persuaded of this, so knowing this, trusting in this, I know that I will remain and I will continue beside, to get the para in, I will remain beside all of you, and then we get ace, with the result of your advancement. Now we saw that word before, that's that the metaphor is drawn from an army moving forwards, cutting through, and it simply means advancement. Picks up, it was in verse 12, I think. So I will remain beside you, resulting in your advancement, and the joy, tes pistios, well, the joy perhaps which comes from faith. The joy, so this is this funny use of the genitive, which is very common in Paul, the joy which comes from faith. Hina to kalkema humon perisue en Christo Jesu en emoi diates emes parousias palin pros humas. Now this is a rather difficult verse, and if you look at various translations, you'll see that there are lots of different translations of this verse, and the commentators, in my opinion, have not really dealt with this in a way that I find satisfactory. The real problem here are these words en emoi, as to exactly what they mean here. Now we haven't got there yet, but I'll point out that a bit later, when we get to verse 30, a bit further on, we're going to get this en emoi again twice. And in that context, it has the sense of I am engaged with. In regard to me. So in fact, let us quickly have a quick look at where it comes in verse 30 here. So he says that you know, having this same contest, such as you know, en emoi, is that I am engaged with, I think is a good way of translating it. And now you have heard, now you hear en emoi, that I am engaged with. So he's talking about his imprisonment. So coming back here then, this en emoi, literally in me, some translators have said, translated this perhaps because of me, on my account, perhaps with me is another possibility. But we just keep in mind that idea of that I'm engaged with might be a useful translation here as later. So anyway, it's literally in order that kau kema humon, your boast, and that again is debatable. Does it mean the boast that belongs to you or my boast in you? So keep that in mind. So in order that your boast might abound in the Messiah Jesus, well, literally in me, through my presence again with you. So here are the various options. It could be in order that the boast I have in you might about that I am engaged in might abound in the Messiah Jesus on through my presence with you again. It may simply mean your boast might abound in Christ Jesus because of me through my presence with you again. It may also mean in order that your boast or my boast in you, whichever way you take it, might abound in Christ Jesus when I am with you. And then this is parenthetical. So here, because of my presence again with you. So again, you need to look up the commentaries here. There's lots of different translations of this and slightly different interpretations. It's exactly what he means. Paul often talks about his boast over various of his congregations, and that may be the background of this, but his Greek is not very clear. Monon axios to euangelio to Christu polytues there hina aeti elthon kaidan humas aeti apona kuo ta perihumon hoti staketi en heni pneumati mia psuke sun althuntes te piste tu euangeliu. And unfortunately this is another verse which has various possible translations. So the monon is adverbial here. It's something like our only. So it's like as long as. So only, and there's an imperative polytues there. Well, one translation I saw that says live as citizens of heaven is not what the Greek says at all. In fact, probably misrepresents the Greek. Polytuo it's not in earlier Greek, and with exceptions in the second book of Maccabees it occurs in the Septuagint. In the New Testament it's only here and in Acts 23:1. It means to live as a citizen. A polites is a citizen. In other words, conduct your public affairs. Live as a citizen. Be involved as a citizen. It's got nothing to do with heaven, I don't think. It just says only conduct your public life, axios, worthily of the gospel of the Messiah. Hina, in order that, now we get ate and ate, that whether I understood having come and having seen you, or whether apone is participle from apami, being absent, I hear the things regarding you. Now the hoti is slightly odd here, but it's something, so it's may I hear that. We've got to understand something about this hearing from the earlier bit, but the grammar's slightly odd. So in order that whether I come and I see you in person or I'm absent and I hear about your affairs, It's something like see to it that stakete you stand in one spirit. Stako is a later regularized form of histemi, and it goes into the continues on into Byzantine Greek. It appears again in this work in chapter 4, and you will see it elsewhere in the New Testament. So it's make sure that you stand in one spirit. Now the editors put a comma here and not a comma after here. So the editor seems to be saying we should take this little phrase with the verb coming next. That is not necessarily true. These may be, in fact, just connected with each other, so that they're simply mirroring each other. So in one spirit and in one life, and then the sun althuntes goes with the bit after, not with the bit before. This is from Sun Athleo. Paul likes to use metaphors from running and from exercise and competitions, sporting competitions. So Sun Athleo, the basic meaning of that, and the verb itself is rare, it seems to mean to strive. It's to an athlon is a prize, so athleo is to try and win a prize in some sporting event. So it's something like striving. So if you take the comma there, it'll mean this. So see that you stand in one spirit, striving with one life, with one psyche, well, in the faith of the gospel. Without the comma there, it could simply be, see that you stand in one spirit and in one psyche, perhaps one mind, and then here striving, striving with the faith of the gospel of the euangelion. And the problem too is this genitive here, is it an objective genitive? Is it a subjective genitive? So is it with the faith that comes from the gospel, or is it with the faith that has the gospel as its object? Again, there's lots of different translations of this, and you'll need to have a look at the commentaries there. Kaime turomenoi en me deni hupaton antikaimenon, hatis est in autois endexus apoleas, humon de soterias kai tutor apotheu. And not, now this is a very funny verb here, it's only here in biblical Greek. It's a verb used in classical Greek meaning frightened or scared, generally in relation to animals, and in particular horses. So it's often translated frightened or scared. Spooked might be a good translation here if you're thinking about horses being spooked. And not being spooked by, we get that instrumental use of en here, by any of those who lie against you, so those who are your adversaries. This is a genitive plural participle here. Hatis, which is the very thing which is the endeixis. This is the demonstration for them of their destruction, apoleia, but of your salvation. And this is from God. Hoti humin ekariste to hupa Christu, umonon to esauton pistuain alakai to hupa autu pascain. We have another slight problem here. We've got this to sitting here. Paul may have intended to put another infinitive in here, as he does here. He's got top pistuane and he's got top pascain, these articular infinitives that we've seen used earlier, but he may have changed his mind midstream. So I translate something like, because, this is passive here, it has been granted to you, so perhaps God has granted this to you. So this thing, I think we're going to take the top to be this, and the top is going to be explained a bit later by these infinitives. So because this has been granted to you on behalf of the Messiah, not only top pistuon, to believe in him, but also top pascain, the suffering on behalf of him. So not only belief in him, but also suffering on his behalf, having the same agona, this is contest or struggle. Again, it's a metaphor taken from competition, sporting competition. So having the same struggle, hoion, such as you see, literally in me, and now you hear in me. But perhaps to be translated as something like, I am engaged in, such as you see that I am engaged with, and now you hear that I am engaged with. So a difficult second part of chapter 1, and that's the end of chapter 1 of Philippians.